On. Good morning. So as a reminder to all, the meeting will be recorded. The notes of the meeting, the video of the meeting, who attended the meeting, the audio and transcript will all be posted online on the GSA playlist within YouTube, as well as on the open.usa.gov site. It can take a few weeks, to be honest, but I gotta tell Google that I'm recording. And with that, we're gonna get it kicked off. So first, thank you everyone for attending today, both online and virtually. So we have 13 folks online. Folks on the line, if you want to speak, feel free to just raise your hand and Laura will tell you when it's time to come off mute and say your piece. Folks in the room, we're just gonna raise our hands. I'll know you want to say something. That'd be pretty easy. We do ask folks when you come off a mute to raise your hand, just say your name and organization so that folks on the line know who's talking to who. Some basic meeting stuff, and we'll get started. So this is my meeting. Can I make that go away? Great. So this is a meeting disclaimer. We are again recording. Everything there is still true. Everyone in the room should have signed a media waiver in the back. See a lot of heads saying yes, we signed a media waiver. Excellent. It basically just says we're not paying you for your likeness. That's the big GSA thing. In terms of agenda today, we have some greetings and introductions, icebreaker activity. Everyone start thinking now, the very limited to 3 words about yourself, about what you do, about open government, about your favorite hobby, if you like. Start thinking now because that'll be coming up very shortly in the agenda. News from GSA, then we have a couple of Miro board sessions and recaps, and then we'll close. That'll be 2.5 hours. So I don't know, Daniel, did you want to speak for Hotbox?
I can. Do you want to go first?
Come on up. Okay. Actually, no, why don't you go first? Because I've got, I got some slides. And then is Alonzo in the room yet? No, well then you're in one. You're speaking for OGP. Go ahead. All right. So the camera's a little owl there through there. Awesome. Try to get the device.
Try not to break the screen here. So I guess it's part of my job is to say thank you to GSA and welcome to everyone to this conversation around building open government. I'm Daniel Schumann. I'm the governance director at the Popbox Foundation, but I'm not here in that capacity. I'm actually here in my capacity as coordinator of the Open Government Roundtable. The Open Government Roundtable is a forum for organizations to come together at the federal level to speak about open government and transparency and accountability. I'm speaking only for myself. I'm not speaking for the other members of the roundtable. But speaking for myself, I'm so pleased to be here at this convening with GSA and the Open Government Secretariat, as well as OGP. So this event for us is a leap of hope. I've been involved since 2009, I think, when the Obama administration started with the Open Government Initiative. I think that's what it was called. Since then, there's been a number of sort of public-private collaborations. The most notable one that I've been involved in has been with the US Congress, focused on making legislative information available to the public. And that was an instance where civil society had aimed for a policy goal, but we actually ended up with culture change, where those participatory meetings are ongoing. We're continuing to change the way open government works. And that's what I'm hoping from this process, that we can create together a way of making our government more open and accountable. Dan and his team here at GSA have worked with us to co-create an agenda where we have done this together. We talked through some of the news that GSA will have to share in just a little bit. And it gives me confidence in the work that GSA is doing here. And I'm hoping that the work that we're seeing from them is reflective of the rest of the federal government. Open government is the arsenal of democracy. It's not just a sign of a strong and resilient democracy, but open government is what makes government strong and resilient. I hope that this is the restart of a partnership for our democracy. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Alonzo? You're good. The camera's a little owl.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Alonso Sudan. I'm from the Open Government Support Unit. And I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm just going to say we're here to support you. You're here, my colleague Juan is also here. We're here to talk to you about any doubts that you might have about some of the rules and some of the regulations that we have the Open Government Partnership. We've been working at this for more than 10 years. I've been at the support unit for 10 years. And what we've seen from this time is that when there's a strong co-creation process, when there's a forum, when there's this work between government and civil society, the results are better. You get more ambition, you get better implementation, you get better commitment. So this is really important, and that's why we want to support it. I can share with all of you my email, my information, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any question. We're here to support both government and civil society. So we're here for you, and we're very, very glad to be here.
Thank you, sir. Last and probably least, good morning. My name is Daniel York. I'm the director of the new Open Government Secretariat here in GSA's Office of Government-Wide Policy. We were stood up with some funding from Congress in the 23 budget to do open government for real. Over the last 10 years, it's always been a priority, but never really funded to be able to do all the good work, and now we are. So I'm going to have just a few, there we go, a few moments to talk through what we do here in GSA, what the broader landscape looks like on the federal side. I'll give you some updates from the GSA side, and then we're going to jump into our activities. So first of all, the White House White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, OSTP, helps organize things at the administration level, plays a lot of traffic cop, helps us to adjudicate issues between agencies. GSA handles the domestic related commitments, national action plans, processes, and then State Department, USID, like Carol here from State Department, handles all the international facing stuff, of which there's a lot, including our membership on the Open Government Partnership Steering Committee. Carol, do you want to say a few things? Are you good? No. Great. So who is the Open Government Secretariat? Nope, not like that. Well, there's me in the upper left. I'm handling a lot of the intergovernment coordination, intra-government, as well as the NAP5 process. Yvette and Alexis, who are in the room, helping to handle NAP6. Laura, who's helping manage the Zoom for us, is the multi-stakeholder forum, community engagement, helping us put a hold of this on. And then Arthur and Avis, who's in the back here, are working with our getting the Federal Advisory Committee approved, as well as the website migration. We'll be talking about what that means here in a moment. First, any questions in the room or online? I'm gonna assume there aren't any unless folks raise their hand or Laura tells me there's something, so. Can't actually see the chat roll. So what do we do? National action plan stuff. Obviously there's a lot with NAP5, there's 36 commitments, 70 some odd subcommitments. NAP6 development that will be kicking off here shortly. Actually begins the discussions here today, right? How we go about the priorities for these and the stakeholder engagement, the federal stakeholders, the civil society, public stakeholders, and then our website. Why we're here to listen, we're here to learn, we're here to collaborate, we're here to build trust, especially as we move into the NAP6 process. Sessions like this will help fuel that. So if we can't have these sort of meetings, it makes NAP6 a lot more time. Legal, Daniel's here somewhere. Laura, do you want to pass it over?
Okay, so
I don't think you're on.
maybe another mic.
Or you come to the front. I think that's fine.
Worst case scenario, let's go. Okay, so just a little heads up to everybody. As an attorney, one of my jobs is giving people disclaimers, and the disclaimer today is the one you see on the screen. The purpose of this engagement is to encourage broad public input. However, GSA does not intend to use any individual collective opinion expressed in the forum as a guideline in the formation of any agency policy or regulation. So just a heads up about that before we get started.
So our icebreaker, we're calling this our 3-word activity, right? So you say your name, your organization, your agency in some cases, as well as folks online will be doing this via the chat. And then 3 words, very limited to 3 words. to what are the three things about yourself, about your organization, about your hobbies. And I think Mr. Howard has a good example for us. So we maybe get the mic to him and then we'll pass it around the room.
Thank you. So this is so from the unconference role, from the transparency camp. If you've never been to one of these before, and the idea is you say 3 words, so name, 3 words, and off you go. That's it. So Alex Howard, co-founder of the Open Government Roundtable, purposes today, Open Government Journal.
Great. Maybe, yeah, pass it one way or the other.
Okay, great.
Hi, Craig Grunwald with a small business called Adapt, based at the Open Gov Hub. 3 words, global, say context, and marathons.
Again, folks online, feel free to throw them in the chat. Carol?
Sure, Kirill Jakumovsky, Department of State, 3 words, diplomacy, transparency, accountability.
Dickinson, Open Government Secretariat, the Queen, healthy and wise.
Susan Harley, I'm Managing Director of Public Citizens Congress Watch Division. My 3 words would be advocate, manager, and organizer.
Good morning. My name is Tony Rodriguez. I'm with the nonprofit Open Gov Hub. 3 words described would be transparency, accountability, and civic engagement.
I see what you did.
Good morning, my name is Ada Ryan, and I am part of the Open Government Secretariat. 3 words to describe myself for right now, preparing for retirement. What I'm passionate about, I'm a massage therapist, so self-care.
Hello, everyone. Nick Hart. I lead the Data Foundation, and I would say data improves society.
Oh, nice.
Hi, I'm Gabriella Cantor with Crew, and I would say, government and accountability and community.
Hi, Virginia Cantor, Chief Ethics Counsel for Crew, and Gabriella, my colleague, stole some of my words, government, ethics, and accountability.
Daniel Schumann, Hotbox Foundation, Open Government Channels.
Hi, this is Laura Safmary, with Dan's team with the Open Government Secretariat, and mine are community, intuition, and trust.
Well, my name is Dan Terra, from ESAOGC. I advise the Office of Government-Wide Policy, and I guess my 3 words would be government technology attorney.
I'm Courtney Anderson. I'm with GSA. I'm about to start a detailed open government team from the Office of Shared Solutions and Performance Improvement. And my words are collaboration, transparency. There's really 2 words, so I'm going to make it 1, information management.
Good morning, my name is Nina Taylor. I'm the CEO of the Center for Election Science, and my 3 words is innovation, disruption, and strategy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan Ferguson. I'm the Chief of Federal. I run the data AI automation practice. And 3 words, data, governance, and collaboration. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis Masterson. With 3 words are government, trust, and policy.
I am Chris Raleigh. I'm with the Center for Election Science, but also at the Open Gov Hub. And my 3 words would be change, elections, and empower.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Catherine. I'm with the Open Contracting Partnership. So my words are procurement, impact, and problem solving.
And my name is Annalise Burkhart. I'm with Transparency International US, and my 3 words are anti-corruption, transparency, and governance.
A few folks in the back.
Hi, everyone. I'm Juan Collasos. I am with the Independent Reporting Mechanism of the Open Partnership, and my 3 words would be research, collaboration, improvement.
Hi, Ben, also, from OGB. And my 3 words would be open government, accountability, and environment.
I'm Emily Engel from REI Systems, we support GSA. My 3 words are probably information access, transparency, and context.
Laura, do you maybe take a couple of some of the highlights online?
Okay, online folks, you're up to bat. So first to go, we have some folks here from the Policy Council. We've got National Archives represented. We have the National Security Archive as well. We have the Project on Government Oversight. Let's see. We have Ventara and a couple other folks. DOJ is on the line, so Justice is here. The Carter Center as well. And of course, Pepe, and we apologize, Pepe, that you were not able to come to the building today. Next time, we promise it'll happen. So some of the words that are really coming out to me, co-creation was a big one that came up. Access to information, gender, marginalized populations, innovation came up more than once. FOIA and government transparency, and then a lot of collaboration, so that's.
Great. And again, I guess I'll wrap us up then. Daniel York, GSA, OGP, Oscar Mowai policy, not open government partnership. It's sort of terrible that acronyms align, but that's what it is. And probably sustainability, transparency in the community would be my words. All right, so now we go into some GSA updates before we jump into the fun part. We want to put up on the screen what the key components to a successful multi-stakeholder forum. I'm not going to read you all these because I have like 5 minutes to get through 30 slides. So I wanted to show you that as we talk about multi-stakeholder forum, these are all the things we're trying to do, both in the room today and over the next sort of forever, but specifically the next year or two. Laura, do you want to take this slide or do you want me to jump in?
So we just wanted to kind of talk through really quickly some of the phases that we're working on for the MSF establishment. So I know for those of you coming from more private sector backgrounds or nonprofits, it sounds very cumbersome. You're like, why can't they just stand up a body already? Like, how hard is it to do? It's very hard. So we are working on that right now. So we are just now leaving the investigation phase, and we're going to be moving into participant recruitment, governance, figuring out how the body's going to actually operate. Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide, I think that's probably the best one. Yes. So one thing we've been hard at work on is we created a pretty large alternatives analysis document for GSA leadership. It is currently with the administrator, who we are hopeful will give us a decision here in the next couple of days. So some of the options you can see is the establishment of a new federal advisory committee. I will be completely honest with you, that is the one that we recommended. We are hopeful that we get support there. Some of the other options that we have considered was NAPA. They have a FACA exemption, so there's a possibility of being able to use them to help co-create. A public university was also a big option, as well as having civil society kind of self-organize. But we thought that was a little bit cumbersome for civil society. We'd rather not put all the onus on you guys. So with that, Dan, I think we're good, but
Yep.
You want me to handle the listservs?
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay. We are trying to streamline communication down. So we would really like to have 2 communication platforms. So we're gonna have 2 listservs. So we've got one for within the government, which is only gonna be available to .gov or .mil email addresses. We are not excluding contractors. As long as they have a .gov or a .mil and they're supporting an agency, they're welcome to join. And then for outside the government, we are going to be having a public listserv for y'all. We are going to be sending out that information probably within a day of this meeting.
2 or 3 days.
So just be on the lookout for that email on how to sign up.
We had hoped to be able to provide that information here today, except that the GSA IT isn't working. So we didn't want to tell you how to join and how to be busted. And yes, that's a recorded line. Thank you, GSA IT. Mr. Howard, I'll pass on the mic.
Sure. So, quick question. Will that paper, that analysis paper laying out the options be something that you make public so that everyone can see the evidence you're looking at and understand why you chose to make this certain decision?
The rationale behind it.
Yeah, because the US has never had a multi-stakeholder forum, other countries have, and it would be great to see the research that you have done, all the work that you've done to put in front of her, so that when you make this decision, the American people, advocates, Congress, everyone else can understand why you're going that way, the pluses and the minuses. And then with respect to this, there's been a long-standing .gov listserv and a long-standing Google group. With respect to, so it seems like these things have existed. Can you explain more about the platform you're choosing for the listserv and why?
You want to take that? You want me to?
Thank you. So we will need to double check with our legal team and some other folks, like our Office of Strategic Communications, on whether or not we can release the decision maker. I personally have no problem with it, so if we can actively get approval for that, that would be something we'd be happy to send around to everyone. So we can definitely do that. We'll take a note of that. And then for the listservs, so it's not a new platform. We'll be using the government only one is the same one that we've been using, so that's not changing at all. So that's been the same email address that you can kind of join. The only thing that's really new is that we're opening up a dedicated listserv for the public. So before that, it was just the Google group. So this gives us a little bit more control. We can legally post and send things through this, whereas it wasn't as clear on the Google group if we were allowed to access it. So that's one of the main reason is that GSA could not access the Google group. So it's hard for us to manage something that we can't even access on our government computers. So the listservs are, kind of trying to figure out all of that logistical stuff.
I might just add that we're not looking to put the Google group away or put it to bed or close it out. It's being managed by civil society currently, and to the extent civil society wants to continue to use it, they're certainly welcome to. Oh man, Laura, it's all you all day. Or do you want to take this one or you want to take it?
You can take it.
Great. All right, so this past Tuesday, the 30th, we held, I'll say our first, only because it's been a very long time, federal government, sorry, this is blocking, let me try this. Federal agency-based open government community practice, right? So we got our community practice together. We used the listserv we just talked about. We had, what, 40 people-ish on the line. And we want to make these regular every 2 months or so. And then look into the possibility of actually holding joint sessions as well with civil society. But the first step was just getting it set up. A place where we can have knowledge sharing, capacity building, and collaboration. Great, website. Miss Davis.
Hi. Good morning again, this is Ava. The Open USA migration. So what we've done is, we've combined a team of, folks who their expertise in the website, so we just kind of pulled everybody's skills together to, talk about the migration of the Open USA.gov site to the GSA.gov platform. To make it simple, to make it easier for folks to use. We are pulling in users that use the website to kind of help us kind of navigate through. So easier to use and ensure it is a source of timely, effective, and accurate communication on USA open government initiatives.
Great. And then in terms of sneak peek, we can show you one page we've already built.
So the sneak peek of the open government website is here. The first version of the new open government secretariat page is easier to use. It will include current open government resources, links to past USA maps, a re-image commitment tracker, displays, and much more. So this is it.
All right, barring any questions, comments, concerns, jump to the next. NAP 5 tracker, so that's my chart. We're in the process right now of updating all of the commitments within our NAP 5, National Action Plan 5. I mentioned there's 36 commitments, 70 sub commitments. On the right, you'll see how it will be displayed on the legacy site. So we'll have the agency, sub-agency, commitment status, complete, in progress, or not started, the date of the update, as well as links to evidence, and then the August update below it. So a couple of extra fields that weren't on the August update. And then these will be sort of stacked, so every time we make an update, it'll sort of push the last one down. That's I am. Nope. I mentioned some of this already, 36 commitments, 70 subcommitments broken up across 5 themes. They hit 25 federal agencies or sub-agencies components. 20% of them or so were considered completed in August. And we'll have a few more to add to that list in the February update. And then we have a number of them that are on track or more than halfway through. Pass it on, is it that or
I have a mic.
Alexis? Great.
Hi, everyone. So this is a very sensitive timeline to put together. Essentially, the only thing that is set in stone there is that we need the 6 NAP to be released by December of 2025, which is a year from when NAP 5 expires this December. Other than that, these are the different stages we expect to go through. Again, the exact timing, dates, durations, all subject to change. So right now, we are in launch and planning, we're coming up with our strategy, identifying the various stakeholders, yourselves included, who we want to make sure we can hear from. Also trying to get, as we talked about, the multi-stakeholder forum up and running, that way we can actually have that true co-creation process without nuance and need. After that, we're gonna move into idea generation, and that's when, we'll look back at different recommendations and, letters, ideas, papers, everything that's been submitted to the government previously. We'll have conversations with both agencies and civil society about where people see top priorities in the open government space, and try to see where there really is some good overlap between what government is interested and has the bandwidth and capability to do, and what civil society believes will be really valuable commitments for the next NAP. Then we'll get into drafting, the nitty gritty of the specific language, publication. That will be interesting to see how long that takes. So that might be one that stretches or shrinks depending on how fast we can get approval from the powers that be. And then finally, once we get it published, we will move into closeouts. With this being, we don't just want to get it online and get it released, but we really do then want to hear from you all. This NAP process, how does it compare to the previous NAP creation processes? I'm sure there are things we'll find we could have done better, and we want to make sure we collect all of those, because, within 2-3 years' time, we'll be looking at NAP 7, and we don't want to lose those lessons learned. So that is the timeline in a nutshell, and happy we'll probably discuss these at future get-togethers.
All right, someone pass Carol mic.
Thanks. Right, so as is outlined on the screen, of course, we at the State Department are the leads on the Summit for Democracy. And I think most people should be familiar with it if you're in the open government space, but if you're not, it's one of President Biden's flagship international initiatives interested in maintaining and growing democracy worldwide, which is especially salient in the face of trends of democratic erosion. We're excited to participate in the 3rd summit, which will be next month. That's going to be led by the government of the Republic of Korea. And we anticipate that we'll have high-level representation there in Seoul for that. We're still awaiting a full accounting of progress that's been made on the over the last year on the summit commitments from the interagency. But we hope to have some updates on that to share through official comms channels soon. And so we're interested in your thoughts on how, this is something we're exploring, but interested to hear your thoughts too on how we can preserve the legacy of the summit and its lessons via the United States' OGP action plan, because it's certainly something that we're interested in promoting globally amongst other countries with action plans as well. So yeah, that should do it for the summit. Thanks.
Great. All right, so let's some time for discussion, and I set up already. Any questions, comments, concerns, online, in person? Great, get Daniel the.
So you find that there we go. Maybe a little better. So there are a number of things that you talked about that I think are really important that you would find faster than I just want to make sure that people got like the recommendation for the Federal Advisory Committee, if that is indeed what the agency approves, like that is a significant recommendation. The reinvigoration of the regular meetings inside the government is a good thing. That you're looking at having those meetings with the public is not something that has happened since the early Obama administration, when there were quarterly meetings between civil society and the gov folks who are implementing, so like that is a significant thing as well. The reinvigoration of the listservs is also notable. And we can figure out what to do with the civils, the Google group, for what makes sense there. And as well as like, even just what popped in now, like the willingness to like, the decision paper that you're working on and the willingness to release that, assuming that all the stars align with legal and communications, like, these are all notable things. And these are not things that we've seen before, including the co-creation also of this meeting itself. So I just want to take a moment and acknowledge those because those are notable achievements.
Thank you.
That's it.
I appreciate it. Actually, maybe I'll pass the mic to Laura, so to talk in a second. No, thank you for that. And I say we are trying. I'm not saying we've been successful yet, but the stand of the Secretariat, we've really been trying really hard to get the process right. A very smart person told me one time, the process is the product, right? So making sure we have the right building blocks in place, the right funding in place to make this sustainable. My first of the 3 key words, regardless of an election in November, right? Democrat, Independent, Republican, however the election turns out, we want to make sure this effort continues. And putting those building blocks in place is super important, both within government and with civil society.
Hey, Dan, can I say one thing on the MSF?
Of course.
So on the multi-stakeholder forum, with the establishment of an FAC, I just want to give you a tiny bit of background on some of the rationale that we have for it. So we were mainly looking at what complied with not only US regulatory requirements for accepting public recommendation, but also what complied with the OGP IRM's recommendations for how a multi-stakeholder forum should behave, how it should operate, all of that. So one of the things that we've considered is potentially standing up a subcommittee underneath an existing PACA as a way for us to right now start collecting as much information as we can, start the co-creation process. However, that's not a sustained body. So the reason we're looking to stand up our own FAC as opposed to just doing that route is that we don't want something to just disappear or go away. We're really looking to give you one formal body that is going to be here institutionally for a long time. So that's kind of the rationale for why we are recommending that. It doesn't mean the other ones were bad options, and we are still waiting on that decision, so we do not know at this point in time whether or not it's gonna happen yet. So we'll update you as soon as we know.
Questions, comments? Alexis, Mike.
I want to reiterate everything that Daniel said. Thank you for the actions that you've taken for people on the outside of government. We've been asking for some of these things, including this in-person meeting right now, which I think is the first one of these that has been hosted at GSA since 2018. I was in a workshop here with some other people at Scenic Card, where we had a couple hundred people in 2 rooms here ideating around that national action plan. So thank you for welcoming people back in. And thank you for the explanation of the fact that that's also been asked, going back, I think, to the first national action plan. That was something that we asked for over a decade ago. And one of the reasons is because the co-creation process has been opaque, and under a FACA that changes. I hope you all will look at the Freedom of Information Act Advisory Committee at the National Archives, which I'm on right now, as a model for this, including the way that now multiple archivists have chartered it, and the way that the Office of Government Information Services, the federal FOIA ombuds person, Lena Simo, has chaired it. I think Bobby is on the line as well. They both have been, I think, exemplary public servants in creating space for public conversations and a consensus-based model for making recommendations to improve the FOIA. That's worth noting. That committee was a commitment in the second National Action Plan of the local government. So that came out of that process, came out of this process. The question I have for you, since you raised this, and I think this is the first time you talked about this, what do you mean by the National Action Plan expiring at the end of the year? What's going to happen when that occurs? Will you still be implementing commitments in the open? Would you consider adding new commitments or revising them in the way that the Open Government Partnerships independent review mechanism just suggested to you?
I don't know, OGP, you want to take that or do you want me to take that?
Well, people? Sure.
Mike?
So I mean, so one of the things that we should keep in mind is that the rules, regulations that OGP has is really for you as a tool. To ensure that you are meeting needs as, so basically what's gonna happen with this action plan, you know, there's there is a implementation phase that will come to close, of course, but it is your decision. Whether you want to use any of the commitments that you've already submitted. And, you know, dive farther into them or to include new commitments. So it really is your process and you should keep that in mind. What works for you? What it is that you're looking for? What are the results you're looking for? And then what we do at OGP and ARM is that we help you, you know, keep accountable to your own process. So, you know, I mean, that's something that really should be top of your head. I'm not sure if that answered your question, Alex.
I would say from the US government, I'm talking on behalf of the US government, that's always like, there's a lot of us. So we are working with the White House to figure out what that means specifically, whether we want to sort of stop on NAP 5 in December 2024, or continue with challenges or continue some of the commitments while we focus on the development of NAP 6. IRM or OGP now does give federal governments a year, right, from the closure of one national action plan to have the next one in place. So we're gonna take advantage of that year, particularly with the election in November. That year allows us to have time to make sure that anything in the NAP 6 it has approval with the new administration, right? We didn't want to put a national action plan in place and then a new administration walks in a month later. And they say, oh, that was the last person's thing, or hey, that was the last piece of leadership's idea. And, you know, it becomes really hard to implement at that point. So that year allows us to get the right folks on board from the, again, either Democrat, Republican, or independent. We're certainly having new leadership throughout government either way, at the agency level. So it'll be helpful to make sure those folks are bought in. And that's why that year would be really valuable. I think you had one more.
Yeah, and actually a follow-up question to that. So I think I'm also a big believer in process and the partnership where I work as well. So I do think, you know, it speaks a lot to you and the team, but I just want to say that the commitments in the end, right, do not depend on your team, but on those agencies, right? And those of us who have been working on US NAPs for a while, it was 2 NAPs in a row, right? Where the last NAP, there was a real sense that there were only commitments for things that you were already planning to do. And then people kind of stopped engaging, right? And that was after the last NAP where very little happened. And I think, you know, when you say hundreds of people were here, this is a small group. So with an election especially, right, that also again lowers trust. So, oh, what we are working on now, it will actually really create a strong NAP. And I know this is, you're trying your hardest because you already are showing us the process is different, but I think that's the thing, right? That will be really hard for this group to overcome, you know, 2 NAPs that were not that participatory, where there were commitments that were already standing and now an election. So I mean, maybe this is a question more to this room, right? But I would love to hear how this actually could be different, because that also means, you know, we all show up again because we actually believe that I can get a procurement commitment in the next step, right?
Yeah, so I know I talked about the sustainability being one of my keywords, right? Things like working with the policy folks, to put the right memos in place that gives GSA authority to do a thing. Setting up the federal advisory committee when if approved to help sustain this past the November election, right? So there are pieces that are fundamentally changing in the open gov space on the government side to help that. Now, I can't predict the future, you know, my crystal ball's broken. I don't know how it's gonna work, but having folks in the room like this, what Alex says is 2018, right? We have to start. And if we don't start, we're certainly not gonna get the outcome we want. So we might as well start and move forward and cross our fingers, hope for the best. Right, do all those things. I do appreciate the discussion. Anything on the chat, Laura?
Just that if everyone for the online folks, if you could introduce yourself when you speak, I did it the same thing, so if everyone could do that, that'd be great.
Great. All right, so now we're gonna move to Miro. So folks that brought their computers, we're gonna be doing, did I mess this up? No, this is the right slide, right, Laura?
Yep.
Okay. You wanna talk to it or you want me to?
This is Alex.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Alex, go ahead. You want to come in?
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
It's probably just easier. So, I've been part of these processes since the second app. I've trucked over to the White House to talk with Cass Sunstein. He had a little roundtable where he asked us how could things be improved. We gave him the exciting idea that PDFs should maybe go away for data. Still working on that, but it's exciting to see that there's been progress, particularly in this agency. So if you look at how open government processes have been conducted by the US government, it's important to say that it didn't just start in 2009, right? The US government has been taking feedback from the American people for centuries. The technology's gotten better, but the processes are still in many ways the same. And the lawyers are always concerned about putting in disclaimers, but I think the idea that the American people should be involved in this and have a voice in this, and not just in suggesting ideas, but for voting them up, has been one that we've seen now embraced by multiple administrations. And they've done it in different ways. And this is a little bit tech focused, but that's how this has been conducted. And I think the fact that open government's been put within the GSA's tech part reflects that. I'm hoping that the next process will incorporate more than just technology, right? But we'll get to public expression, get to public meetings, get to the kind of town halls that were a commitment in the fourth National Action Plan and the eighth one, which was to have roundtables and town halls all around the country that were live streamed. See if that happens, but it's the right direction. So if you look back to 2008, the Obama administration came in, asked the American public for ideas about how to improve government. You can still go to idea scale and see many of them, and many of them are still relevant to this process. You could look back at the directive and plans where the president in 2009, that was President Obama, asked agencies to come up with high value data sets and to talk about the efforts they are making to make themselves more open. That has a parallel to this administration's directive on equity action plans. If you look at many agencies, some of them still have /open, and some of them actually have updated open government plans. I think National Archives is a good example of that. Department of Congress has them as well. Different approaches to this. We'll see what you all do. There's ideation platforms. I mentioned Idea Scale. There's another one, of course, that the Obama administration created for petitions, where people could put in ideas and other people could vote them up. The ones that they went past a certain barrier would get an official response from the administration. That is a ideation process that could be used for this, right? You put in commitments, people vote them up. There was an option to put in email. That's something this administration used as well. Send suggestions to an email address. There are reasons to consider doing that in terms of having the ideas be kind of standing on their own as opposed to in a forum initially and then disclosing them, coupled with roundtables. I mentioned process here for I think the third National Action Plan. We had posters, we had whiteboards. GSA staff faithfully scribed them all and put them online. We used GitHub for the fourth one. If you go to the GSA's GitHub account, you can see all of the proposed commitments from last time. That has the benefit of seeing the inputs that people suggested and then comparing it to the outputs of what was in the plan. This last National Action Plan, we still don't have the inputs. There was forms that were put online, there's emails, but we still don't know what the American people and advocates and organizations asked from the government, which made it very hard for people on the outside to understand how it actually mapped on to what we got with the eventual plan. And then finally, virtual forums and documents. Because of the pandemic, that's where a lot of this effort has shifted. So as we look forward to the next generation of this, my personal hope, as someone who's been following this for a decade, is that the US government will lean in both directions. We'll engage people in person, we'll lean into doing town halls, we'll go to the states, we'll go to the cities, we'll create virtual forums, and then we'll use the next generation of civic software that's aligned towards finding consensus. Anyone who's used the kind of social media platforms that are designed around engagement, around attention, sometimes around outrage, and designed to get revenue from that knows that they're not ideal for driving towards consensus. Lots of different countries have had a very successful experience designing their own civic software, and parts of the United States have too. I love a platform called Polis, that's POL.is. That enables people to come up with collaborative, kind of consensus-based approaches to trying to come up with a different commitment. And I think that approach would be a better one than a lot of the different ways we've done this here. As they've mentioned, there's a tremendous amount of previous suggestions that have come in for over a decade. So we don't need to start from scratch. And my hope is that one of the things that you and your team and others will do is collect all of that research and then show us some of the themes that have come out. And then also look at some of the letters that civil society has sent to you because we've given you some suggestions. So thank you for that.
Great,
chance.
no, thank you. And to that end, we have started that process. There's a lot to read through, but we are putting together previous ideas, previous commitments, things that weren't completed yet, previous ideas that were input into the various NAPs, so that we could have that as a starting place for those NAP 6 discussions. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to go to Miro.
You want to pull up the thing we go through?
Yep. Okay, so move out of the way.
Awesome. So it's loading on our end. Give us 1 sec. So I just wanted to quickly go over 1 second. And Laura, we love a team. Ooh, it's very bad. Okay, here we go.
So this link should have been in the meeting invites as well as on the agenda itself that we sent out. The agenda has already been posted to open.usa.gov. So if you go to public meetings in the upper right, you'll see the February public meeting and the agenda there. That's probably the easiest way to find the Miro. I think we're gonna post the Miro in the chat as well.
It's already posted in the chat.
So folks online can get to it more quickly.
Yeah, so quickly, just to demo this for those of you that are wondering how it operates. First of all, you can zoom in and out on the right-hand side. That might make it easier for you to navigate around the page. On top of that, if you're trying to like grab the screen to move yourself somewhere and it's not working, see how I'm kind of clicking, go to the left-hand side here and hit the select tool. That'll allow you to drag the board around kind of the way I'm doing. Similarly, online folks, we're gonna break you up into breakout groups online. Folks in here, we're gonna just have you work with your pod at your table. So we want you to just add sticky notes. So the ask here is that each team kind of consolidate your sticky notes into like one area. We'll move them over. If you want to add a group name or something like that so that we can kind of track you better, that would be really helpful. But to add a sticky note, you can just grab it and you can either just do Control-C and then Control-Paste. Or you can go over to the left-hand side here and grab a sticky note and place it where you would like. So with that, I'm gonna go start the breakout groups.
Great.
But in terms of the activity, apologies. This is really about the co-creation process. So we are looking to really have you talk about things in a structured way, essentially. So we have feedback, engagement, evaluation, and then kind of decision-making as the main themes. We have some discussion prompt questions in there already. Feel free to use them. If you don't like them, not a problem. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dan and I'll get the online group set up.
Sweet. All right. So in the room, we're gonna have 6 groups. Oddly enough, the 6 tables in the front. So if you want to be in a group and you're not currently, move forward. Each group is gonna have their own set of sticky notes that you're gonna contribute to. And then the folks online will be broken out as well. During the breaks, we have about a half hour. It's about 11 now. We're gonna go to 11:30. During the break, my team is gonna organize all the sticky notes into a thing. And then we're gonna have a brief out after the break in terms of what the topics will cover and what the sticky notes are generally saying, et cetera, et cetera. That's it. That's what we're gonna do. And then the Miro will be posted again with the rest of the meeting materials after that. So, ready, break. I'm gonna mute the room.
Or are you doing okay? I'm gonna join this. It's too loud. Like, do you need something?
Because
No, but I think with time we can.
Oh, I can't see. See my name. Oh, okay. No, you don't. I can find out. Oh, yeah, you're there. Yeah.
I don't know.
Like in a nice way. They drop. Yeah.
All right, folks, about 10 more minutes, we'll wrap up this and go to break. 10 minutes. All right, folks, we're hearing final thoughts. We have a couple minutes left. So get your final thoughts into a sticky note and then we'll break for break.
We'll give it 1 minute, they're coming.
One. Jeez. Well, 2 warnings. All right. All right, folks, welcome back to the main room. Welcome folks back out of their breakout rooms, out of our breakout pods here. Folks that found that to be an interesting session, a little group activities. We're gonna be on 10-minute break now, and then we'll come back in 10 minutes. And I don't know, Laura or Beverly gonna brief out on sort of common themes across?
If we could have folks online and hear like kind of, if we could go team to team and
Even
maybe
better.
people, that would be great.
All right, so maybe choose a team speaker during that 10-minute break, and we will circle back at 11:43. 11:43. All right, folks, thanks. All right, folks, we're gonna bring it back to the room. Good morning, all. Good morning, folks online. How did you want to do the online breakouts? You want
So I asked them, they're gonna share, so we
You want-
can jump to.
Do them first?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we'll do them first then.
Okay, hi all. So I'm looking at the breakout rooms right now. Let me see. Okay, so it looks like in room 3, we had Joshua, Lauren, and Patrice. This can be very informal, guys, but if someone wouldn't mind coming off mute and maybe just sharing some of the top recommendations or comments that you have, that would be super helpful.
Sure. So this is Lauren Harper with the National Security Archive. I'm going to cover the stuff that I wrote down and then kind of ask Joshua to kind of pitch in with his, but I'd say thematically, a lot of the stuff that I was focusing on and chatting with the wonderful colleagues that we got to chat with in our breakout room, we're really taking advantage of tools that we already have and resources that we already have. Some of the ones that I flagged in particular really involve taking advantage of things like the FOIA reading room in terms of, closing that transparency feedback loop and engagement strategies. There are vehicles and there are venues that agencies can use for all kinds of effective communication that I think could be better utilized. And then in terms of evaluation metrics, some of the things that I flagged and that we chatted about were showing that commitments, NAP commitments that are being made are being done with civil society and community priorities in mind, and also following up on previous commitments, particularly those that have kind of analytics built into them. I think there was one example of that would be one of the 5th NAP's commitments was a FOIA self-assessment toolkit. Any following up or reporting or just responses to that from agencies, I think would be helpful to kind of see what agencies do with commitments that have already been made. And Joshua, did you want to add anything that I'm sure I left out, or Patrice?
Yeah, so some of the ones that I recorded, which may reflect different aspects of our discussion. I'm not trying to say anybody is endorsing them. So pairing agencies with stakeholders in processes, meetings, and informal opportunities to humanize the engagement. We talked about how GSA may be a good institutional backstop for open government, but the onus should be maybe to put the leadership back into the White House or into agencies or components like ODNI or whatever that maybe have better leadership on particular subject areas. I thought that initially the GSA advisory committee proposal was great, and then Patrice had some thoughts on things we should be worried about. So I wrote, it may be great, but we need safeguards for making sure the committee doesn't bury good work. Proposing funding so that people doing the work can do the work, proposing statutory changes to ensure that the work continues in an institutional way, proposing institutional changes to promote culture change. And we talked about how the 2009 era was kind of a heyday, and thinking about what was actually special about that time and what would be something that we could replicate today. I think that's it. The stickies have moved, so I don't remember all of them.
That's great. Thank you. Another group online, Lauren?
Okay, so next group, I believe, is Alina, Faith, Laura, and Lauren. Someone wants to come on. Any takers? Okay, we'll move on to the next group. So we have.
Sorry, I'm happy to. It just took me a minute. My computer's a little laggy. Sorry about that. This is Faith Williams from Pogo. Gosh, I will agree that they have been helpfully moved and categorized, but I have lost track and I wish we'd used a unique color or labeled it as you helpfully told us to. But I think one thing we talked about taking lessons learned from other co-creation processes, tapping into existing networks of local, city, and state governments, not all of the time by any means, but remembering that they are stakeholders as well. And we talked about the importance of impact, basically, that stories of impact that come out of this process are what motivate people to be a part of it and feel like it's doing good work. So making the connection from dotting an I and crossing a T in the plan to how that actually impacts someone's life. And I think that's the highlights. If I forgot anything, I welcome the group. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And finally, I believe, so that was Alina, that was room 5. So we're looking at Bobby, Kimberly, and Pepe's room.
Hello? Can you hear me?
You're very, very light. I don't know if you can get closer to your mic.
How about, is this better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Bobby.
We can hear you.
I could just, some of the things we touched on, and then Pepe and Kimberly, if you guys, if I missed anything or if you want to jump in, please do. For transparency and engagement strategies, one thing we talked about is I think what was really successful in the past naps and something Alex touched on is having some kind of a platform for continuous discussion. The GitHub I thought works really well, so that it's just not limited to events and sessions, but it's a nice complement to have the discussion continue to go. For evaluation metrics and things like that, we thought that trackers are really helpful, both for current and past progress. And we thought that the tracker that you all are creating at GSA looks really, really nice. And then one thing that we discussed is the importance of having clear milestones, so that we know what we're trying to accomplish, and that's very transparent about that, and having KPIs tied to timelines, and then having the ability to share progress on initiatives and showcase what agencies are doing so that we can learn from each other, implement like best practices, and continue to be inspired by all the great work that everyone is doing.
Thank you so much. I think that's it from the online ones. So. Okay, we will move to, we want to start over here with Alex. I see a mic on his table.
Sure. It's great to see the Department of Justice body up there, and I hope we get to hear some more about their related events during Sunshine Week. Speaking of feedback loops, we had a great conversation, thought about the importance of getting iterative feedback in a transparent way, both in terms of how commitments are drafted and in terms of having a reasoned response to what was included or not. Used the wiki as a discussion point. Talk about the importance of the U.S. government using all of its bully pulpits to let people know what's happening and have structured participation downstream of that. What do you do if millions of Americans actually show up? Nice problem to have, but it could be a huge problem to think about how to incorporate people's feedback. We all want to comment on other bits.
Yeah, thanks. I think just recognizing the capacity challenges as well within the agencies or the government, and just trying to be realistic as much as we have the ideals, be realistic about what can realistically be done within these periods, and then trying to have more open dialogue with civil society actors outside when things kind of hit a brick wall and trying to troubleshoot.
Pass this table here. Excellent.
Hi, everyone. So let me just get some of the 5 points. We started off talking about the inclusive decision-making column. Spoke a lot there. One of the big things we were hitting on is really the need to also have accountability and action items, responsibility for civil society between these meetings. We just say, you know, we can't just have periodic meetings where everyone gets together, but that people need to really take on that action of reaching out to their networks and engaging people, bring a buddy, not a bunny, to the next meeting. That way we can just really grow our community. So that's our welcome. And then evaluation metrics. We said really the commitment should be smart to begin with. So there should be specific targets, goals we're trying to meet, and not just sort of the fluffy, unclear commitments. We also want to have a clear process timeline. We think so, for instance, not leaving here today or a future meeting and saying, we'll see you all maybe in a couple of months at some point, but having a very clear timeline of we want to meet X times throughout the year. The action items between those meetings are X, Y, and Z. We intend to have, a joint discussion, government and civil society, Y times a year, just being very clear so that both the government side and the civil society side can hold themselves accountable and really try to get things done, even when we're between convening. And then finally, we also talked about engagement strategies. It was pointed out, we really should probably try to increase our online presence. So not just the fact we have a new website coming, that's great, but maybe take advantage of something like Slack for discussions or promote these things on LinkedIn. So people don't think that an invitation is spam, potentially, making it very clear that, there is a community who's engaged and people are welcome to join it. Also, post photos afterwards, again, just really trying to amp up this effort and get people excited and wanting to participate. This is Courtney Anderson from GSA. We talked, starting with the feedback transparency, we talked about having forums where agencies can safely respond to feedback and have an open dialogue with civil society and the public. Every agency has a different culture. So we thought about there could be a playbook that agency lawyers could use, and communication teams could use so that, we're putting transparency first. Also, playbooks for agencies on how to respond to feedback in a uniform way. We also talked about having a universal collaboration platform, kind of like what Alexis's team talked about, where, we can all have a uniform way to collaborate together, but also keeping in mind records management, records implementation, so that we're able to capture them and keep the dialogue and the recommendations for the appropriate time period. So, because we talked about how a little bit we had great ideas in the past, we can't recover them now. With that idea, we also talked about reviewing, like Alex talked about, previous NAP recommendations, which ones are actionable, and reaching out to agencies for input or for more ideas. And we also talked about engaging with the right people at agencies, like making sure we all know who the right people to contact are, who the right people within civil society are the right people, and how we can actually find them. And it related to that, doing an environmental scan for the Federal Advisory Committee about who should be involved, because we can build the advisory committee, but we want to make sure that people come and are involved as much as possible. We also talked about for the evaluation metrics, having a ranking system for commitments by how, if something's easy, like the low hanging fruit, by importance, by what agencies can implement would be really helpful as well.
Great. I think you have a mic.
Yeah, right here, on the side of your.
Hi.
Oh, you got two mics.
My name is Gabriella. I'm with Crew. We spoke about the importance of operating under a understanding of the reality that the Federal Register is a process for transparency, but may not be the most accessible or transparent. And so other ways to engage the public should also be explored. We talked about the importance of ensuring agency engagement on topics that pertain to them within the NAP, and the importance of having a presence from agency staff at forums that the agency staff that are working on implementation of NAP commitments. Anyone else?
All right.
And I'm also Virginia Cantor, also from Crew. There are a variety of interests that are covered by this initiative. And as you had indicated, the outcome is only going to be as good as the process. And the process won't work unless the appropriate agencies are engaged. And so you have to think about how you set up a structure that, however, if you create a package created, how it will ensure appropriate agency participation, legislation, executive orders have probably probably a greater likelihood of success if, in terms of getting agencies to engage. It's, created by GSA, it may not have the same one. So think about that. And again, I've, been focusing on the anti-corruption. Treasury is not part of this, process yet, visibly. I see OSTP. I don't see national national security. I don't see, domestic policy for some of the FOIA issues, the transparency issues. So how are you going to get that kind of engagement? And, in terms of corruption, it's treasury, it's state, it's law enforcement, it's intelligence. These are all challenges. In terms of civil society, we are part of civil society, but when you're dealing with corruption and trying to address national security issues involving foreign actors, you need a whole different level of civil society engagement. So how do you bring them to the table?
Great, thank you. Last table?
This is Tony with the Open Gov Hub. A lot of the topics that we had noted have already been discussed, but a couple of the higher points were definitely the release of information. I think Alex put it best, just a lot of this info that has already been presented to us. It's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle, especially the original documents. I think we also talked about just more inclusivity. And although having an event here in this space is a great kickoff, I think providing more regional opportunities and perhaps spaces not so official, so maybe public schools or whatnot, to host these types of meetings all over to get some more feedback from some folks that may not feel comfortable coming to a space like this. And then helping get the word out on an event and a meeting like this to more folks that would be interested. And I know we discussed different time frames and different time zones, et cetera. But I think that will go a long way in increasing not only the feedback, but increasing transparency in this whole process.
Great. No, thank you. Hopefully that was a useful experience for everyone. There was a lot of overlap between the online and in-person group, which is positive, I suppose, and that we're all sort of thinking about the same things. So I really appreciate everyone's feedback and input on that. All right. All right, so I think we're going to another mural board.
So I can take it down quickly. So another activity, and this one is not nearly as amorphously large as the last one. So this is really just about immediate engagement, guys. So what we're looking for you guys to do in your breakout groups or together, we're interested, are there any events your organization is hosting? Are there any meetings that you guys are going to be having that GSA Secretariat should know about, should participate in, can help you with? Please add that. The other thing is, what are civil society's immediate needs right now? So that the Secretariat might be able to help you with. So is your organization doing transparency work, open data work, anything like that? Can we help you promote it? Should we know about it? If there's something your organization's doing, we want you to use this time to kind of chat about some of the stuff that you're doing internally. And then the last one is just kind of, logistical questions. Do you like the quasi in-person and then also virtual? So just kind of how you kind of like the format of meetings to kind of be creative for you. So I'm going to move everyone into breakout sessions now, and then folks at the table, same thing. If you guys can just start chatting, that will be awesome. So
Laura, remind me how long we have?
I believe we have, looking at the agenda, so we have 20 minutes for this. So again, folks online, if you finish up, feel free to take a little break and come back, but we will do closing remarks and announcements at 12:20. So do be sure to be back on by 12:20.
All right, same groups, same breakout groups. I'm going to mute the line in the room. All right, folks, 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes, begin wrapping it up. 5-minute warning. All right, folks, we're about at time. We're at 12:20. I think we'll be back in the room now. Thank you for everyone that put, there's a bunch of stickies on there. Unlike the last session, we're not gonna read through each one, but the Miro will be posted, after tomorrow, this week, whenever we get all sort of online. So everyone will have access to it then. All right, and that brings us towards the close, as it were. Open Gov, you wanna do closing? Come on up.
So one of the things that I think is present whenever we can bring ourselves to these events is some immediacy bias, right? That we think about what's happening right now, not what has been. And the reason I've always cared about this, that I think freedom of information is important, public access to information is important, participation, collaboration, and accountability ultimately are important, is because they're part of the DNA of our country. It's not just our DNA, it is spread elsewhere, but goes back to the Enlightenment idea that the consent of the governed is important, that people having information about our government is necessary to make informed decisions about it, whether it's participating in regulations, whether it's voting, or whether it's the more esoteric decisions we make around schools and zoning and things in our communities. And it's part of the fabric of our society. But as I think we all know, that fabric has been degraded. We've lost trust in our governments. We've lost trust in one another. We've become more isolated during the pandemic. We have had this process become attenuated through inattention, through some neglect, through decisions. This is a group of people here at the GSA who have come to us as a community and say, we want to make this better. Will you come meet us here? And here we are. It's a start of something. It might be the end of it too, but it's a seed. I'm a big believer in planting seeds because you don't know what will grow over time. You never know. I won't quote Margaret Mead here, but the difference a small group of people can make if they have the right ideas at the right time in history. And I still think that this idea, this original idea of open government is a good one. People have lost faith in our government. So as we think about how to improve this process, how to improve the policies, the programs, the personnel, the political support for it, which I think exists across the spectrum. I've talked to people all around the world, all around this country about open government at every level. And I'll tell you, even people who don't believe in government at all believe that transparency matters. Libertarians believe it, conservatives believe it, Democrats believe it, Greens believe it. Other countries have this idea too. It is not just ours. So it's my hope that this discussion, which I think is genuinely healthy, fruitful, and grounded in reality, is one that extends beyond this place right now, and that you use it as a foundation. And if anyone has ever built a house, they know how important foundations are. Lay it carefully, think about how water drains, whether there's fresh water, think about the materials you use and the trust you place in each other now, because later on, when all of the inevitable issues come up with building that house, the issues with contractors and zoning and neighbors, those foundations and these bonds of trust will make the difference. I'm grateful that you all showed up in person. I'm grateful to the people who are online. I'm grateful to the people who watch this later. And I'm grateful to you all, the Secretariat and your leadership, for making this investment. I hope that you will keep earning the trust back after there have been broken commitments. And from the position of someone in civil society, my hope is that you'll do that by showing that there's both top-down support and wide distributed support across the agencies. Go back, prove those commitments like the IRM asked, add some new ones like people outside of government asked, and then implement them in the open. Build that foundation of trust back over time through participation and collaboration and accountability. And I think more people will come because I do believe that transparency and accountability are American values, not partisan ones. And the more that our American government shows Americans that we are doing this, the more you'll have people come back to it, and you'll be able to lead the world by the power of our example and make this partnership meaningful to people around the world. I can tell you that everyone else is watching. No pressure.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Now I have Alonzo with OGP, Open Government Partnership, not Open Government Wide Policy.
Hi again, everyone. Just very quickly, I just want to say that I'm very hopeful from this space and what the work that is beginning. It has to continue. Like, this cannot be one-off. And I just want to send you an invitation. Please use us. My colleague Pepe, who couldn't be here unfortunately, but you'll meet him afterwards, is in charge of supporting the US civil society and government. I'm very happy as well to provide any support. My colleague from the IRM is the one responsible for assessment of the US. So we're here for you to provide guidance, provide support. So please use us. If you don't have my email, I can send it to you. I can put it also in the chat. I think Pepe is also there. So please reach out. And again, like, I think this is the first step. It's an important one, but it's only the first one, and we have to continue working towards the next action plan and more actions.
Great, thank you, Alonzo. I only have about 35 more slides. No, I'm kidding. I don't have 35 more slides. Just one more slide, but I did want to thank everyone for coming out today. Thank you for being here in person. Thank you for joining us online. Thank you for watching this video later. We'll be tracking the metrics. But I do really appreciate everyone's input, the collaborative nature of this, and how we begin to collect information. They say you should end every meeting with a call to action. So my call to action is this: if you like today and you want to do more of these, we'd love to partner. Let us know. We'd love to do one in 2 or 3 months from now. We want to work with various civil society members throughout the space. And if you're willing and wanting, just let us know. We have the email address on the thing there. I believe Laura can go ahead and throw it in the chat. Get that. And thank you. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for making open government what it is. And that is it. So with that, we're going to close. All right, thank you folks online. We're now going to stop recording. And I guess Laura will get that and we'll call the meeting to an end.